Magewell just launched the Director One, a slightly larger version of the Director Mini. In this video, I'm going to go through everything that's new in this device. Hi, I'm Aaron Parecki. So I've had the Director One on loan from Magewell for a couple of weeks in order to test it out and see what's new. So I want to share with you everything that's new in this, starting with the obvious differences, which you'll notice, the antennas. The Director Mini has built-in antennas. The Director One adds 4 external antennas, 2 4G and 2 for Wi-Fi. This means you'll get better Wi-Fi, and you'll notice the 4G means there's actually a built-in SIM card as well. With the Director Mini, if you wanted to use a cell connection, you'd have to plug in a USB modem or tether it to your phone. With the Director One, it's actually got this built-in SIM slot, so you can plug in a SIM card directly. Of course, you'll also notice the slightly larger screen. This is probably the biggest difference and the main reason why you might want to get this instead of the Director Mini. The Mini is mini, and it can be a little bit awkward to use the small touchscreen. I've heard a lot of people complain about that. I personally think it's okay. My hands are not very big, but the Director One is a much larger screen, so it's going to be a lot easier for people with bigger fingers. It's also significantly brighter than the Director Mini. One of the other differences is if you wanted to use an HDMI out from the Director Mini, you had to go through a dongle. It is possible to use a USB-C to HDMI dongle to get an HDMI output from the Director Mini. One of the nice things about the Director One is it builds in an HDMI port directly. You can still use the HDMI out with a dongle from the USB-C port, but this gives you an HDMI out directly, so you can skip the dongle altogether. So comparing the Director Mini on top to the Director One, you can see there's almost the same inputs and outputs. It's just the addition of the HDMI out. On the side, we still have the microphone and headphone as well as a USB. And on the other side, we also have the 2 HDMI inputs and the USB input. On the top, the Magewell Director Mini just has nothing, and the Director One has the power button and the 4 antennas. One of the other things I noticed is that they did add a tripod screw on the side of the Director One, whereas there is no room for it on the side of the Director Mini because it's taken up by ports. The backs of the devices are almost identical, except that the Director Mini has the fan output on the back, but it is not blowing out the back of the Director One. This means you actually can safely use the Director One flat on a table, whereas with the Director Mini, you really need to use it in a stand so that the exhaust fan is not blocked. I'll leave a link to this stand down below where you can find it at pk1.tv. The last physical difference worth mentioning is the power supply. It's still 12 volts, but the Director One requires 3.5 amps, whereas the Director Mini requires 1.5 amps. So that means you are going to definitely want to use the power supply that comes with the Director One, and you probably won't be able to find a USB-C to 12 volt adapter that'll put out enough power. So let's get this plugged in and turned on, and we can take a look inside. When you first turn this on, you'll notice that it looks the same as the Director Mini, and that's because it is. It's the same features in the Director One. I've got a couple of HDMI cameras plugged in down here. I've also brought in this AVCAN's Go camera over SRT. You can play back video clips. You can even load in a web page as a camera angle to switch to. The audio mixer is now definitely easier to use because these things are just a lot larger on the screen. And of course, if you're navigating the menu, it's just going to be a little bit easier to find the buttons and not miss because the buttons are significantly larger. Again, one of the major differences with the Director One is that it actually has a SIM slot built in. So you can plug in a SIM card into this directly and give it a network connection that way. It also has Speedify built in, just like the Director Mini. So if you do give it multiple internet connections, you can actually bond them all together just by tapping that button. Now that there's an HDMI port built in, the external screen menu is super useful because you can actually choose whether you want your HDMI out to be a duplicate of what you see on the screen. You can use it as a multi-view, you can use it as a preview or program, or even loop out one of the 2 HDMIs. So if I switch this over to the multi-view, for example, you'll see it shows you a preview of all of the different angles. And now as I'm cutting between them, you can imagine this would be super useful on a large monitor in front of you. While I've got these both connected here, I'll also show you how much brighter this screen can get. I've actually turned it down so that I can show it on the camera. The Director Mini is turned all the way up, but the Director One can still go even brighter. And with that all the way at the max, you can see it's completely blown out on this camera because it's exposed for this one to show up. So yeah, it's a lot brighter screen, which will definitely help if you're using this during the day outside. I have a lot of other videos on my channel about the Director Mini, and because this is just a larger version with the same features, you can go ahead and watch all those videos to get an idea of all the different capabilities of this device. So I'll make sure to link those down below. So this has been your quick look at the new Magewell Director One, the slightly larger version of the Director Mini. Thanks again to Magewell for sending this over for me to share with you on the channel. And as always, join one of my weekly live streams on Sundays to get your questions answered live. And of course, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.